Hi friends! Today is Monday, April 6th. It is week 2 of our online learning, so hopefully we are getting better at it. We still have a schedule at home and we are learning lots, okay? Today we're continuing to talk about shapes, and our shape today is very exciting. Our new shape today is called the cube, and a cube is actually called a solid shape, okay? We're going to learn about how to draw a cube, and we're going to learn about the characteristics and attributes of a cube. Okay, so before we talk about a cube, we really need to talk about a square and go over the important characteristics of a square, okay? So what do we know about squares? Well, we know that squares have 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. Okay, it has 4 sides. And we know that if we measured each of these sides, they would be the same length. So we know that they have 4 equal sides. Okay? Now we also know that squares have 4 angles. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's something very, very special about these angles. Think to yourself, if you remember about these angles, remember squares have square angles. So when you hold a piece of paper to their corners, it's the perfect shape of an L. Okay, so they have 4 square angles. And we also know that squares have 2 pairs of parallel lines. Remember, these lines are going to continue on forever and ever and ever and never touch, just like this pair of parallel lines are going to continue forever and ever and ever and never touch. So, another characteristic of squares says 2 pairs of parallel lines. And lastly, let's go over all the different names for our squares. So we can call a square, many different things. Of course, we can call squares squares, but we can also call them, I'm going to change the color, polygons. We can call them quadrilaterals because it has 4 sides. We can call them parallelograms because it has 2 pairs of parallel lines. Great. Now that we went over our characteristics and attributes of squares, we have the tools we need to create and learn about our new shape, the cube. So I went ahead and I made this square. Now, this square is going to be turned into a cube. Ready? I did it beforehand, so I started with this square and I made it into a cube. As you can see, there are many of these that made up this cube. This is a solid object, okay? It's not just a flat object. It's a solid object, okay? And it has attributes or characteristics of its own that makes it different than just a square. So the 3 characteristics of a cube we need to talk about are edges, corners, and faces. Not faces like our faces, but faces of a cube. Now I'm going to show you these different things on this cube here, on this cube here, and on this other cube I made, okay? Just so that we can visualize and understand the different attributes and characteristics. So let's first start with edges, and I'm going to use this cube and the cube I drew on here to talk about edges. So edges are where two of the sides meet together, and they're actually represented by this toothpick in this model. So if we were to count all of the edges, I'm going to mark them so that we don't, sometimes it's hard if we don't mark them. So I'm going to count 1 edge, 2 edges, 3 edges, 4 edges. Now I'm going to go around on the sides. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and on the bottom 10, 11, 12. Okay? So there are 12 edges of a cube. Now let's count them on this drawing up here to help you see it a little bit easier. Here's 1 edge, 2 edges, 3 edges, and 4 edges. Okay? 4 edges on the top, 5 edges, 6 edges, 7 edges, 8 edges. There's 8 now, and 4 around. 9 edges, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, do you see how I counted all of them? There were 4 around the top, there were 4 edges around the sides, and then there were 4 edges on the bottom. Now, the next attribute or characteristic for the cube the corners. Now, the corners are very easy to count, especially with this cube because they are the purple dots. So I'm going to hold this nice and still and let's count the corners together, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's count them again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? There are 8 corners on a cube. So a cube has 12 edges, which are in the red, and 8 corners. Let's do the corners in green. Okay, let's count the corners on this drawing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 on the top, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 4 on the bottom. So there are our 8 corners and our 12 edges of our cube. Now the next attribute is called the faces of a cube. And now it's very hard to tell the faces on this cube because you can reach through it and it's hard to see, but each face would be 1 square. So that's why it was so important to learn about squares and remember what we know about squares, because the faces of a cube are made up of squares. So, for example, each side of this cube is called a face, okay? Now let's count them together so we can see how many faces a cube has. Let's start here, okay? I'm going to do my best. 1 side, let me start over. 1 face, 2 faces, 3 faces, and 4 faces around the side. Now, I'm not done yet because I have to look at the top. So here's 5 faces, and then I'm missing 1. Cannot forget the bottom, so there's 6 faces. of a cube. Let's go over them again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm done around the sides. 5 on the top and 6 on the bottom, okay? So there are 6 faces on a cube. And it was important to learn about squares because the faces on a cube are made up of squares. Okay, so each face is a square. Now it's really hard to tell on this diagram, so I'm gonna try to go over it, but it's okay if you don't really understand. Try to picture the faces on this cube, okay? So the top right here would be one face, the back, 2 faces, this side is 3, this side is 4, the front is 5, and then the bottom is 6, okay? So there are 6 faces. So our square has 4 equal sides, 4 square angles, and 2 pairs of parallel lines, okay? Our cube has 12 edges, 8 corners, and 6 faces. The last thing we have to do today is quickly go over how to draw a cube, because if me or Miss Palmer asked you to draw a cube, you can't just draw a square because we wouldn't know if you were talking about a cube or if you were talking about a square. So we're going to go over how to draw. Draw a cube. So actually I have the first step up here. You just draw a square, and if you have a piece of paper, go ahead and you can practice along with me. The first step is to just draw a square as best you can. It does not have to be perfect, right? We're flexible, just try your best. Then your second step is to, let me just draw what we already had. So I had a square. Your second step is to draw this like upside down L a little bit behind it, okay? Then you connect the corners together. And that is how you draw a cube. So if me or Miss Palmer said, okay, please draw a cube, you would first draw your square, okay? Then you would draw this L shape, upside down L shape, then you connect them. So go ahead and practice that if you want. Otherwise, that's all we had to talk about today. Okay, we learned about the cube. It has, say it with me, 12 edges, 8 corners, and 6 faces, okay? We are going to learn about more shapes tomorrow, and eventually we're going to get to fractions, so that's super exciting. And you do have a seesaw activity today, so go ahead and go on to Seesaw and complete the activity. And you know you can always ask me or Miss Palmer if you have any questions. Okay? Have fun!